This is verse 15 of the 24th chapter, Gospel of Matthew. Jesus mentioning here what by everybody's account is a somewhat obscure reference to the so-called abomination of desolation. We have the text here, so hotan, when or whenever, takes the subjunctive. The on is really connected to aeon, which will take the subjunctive of if. So whenever is the idea, un, postpositive, therefore, ideta. It's the second person plural, aorist active, subjunctive. So whenever, at any such time that you should see, ideta, to see is the idea, to delugma. This is the word for an abomination, a sacrilegious thing, a rather dramatic idea is certainly implied by it. The abomination tastes in the genitive now, eremoseos. The root of this word is arid, or eremos, a desert, an arid place, usually translated desolation. Jesus said, "Behold, your house is left to you desolate," at the end of chapter 23. That's the idea. This would certainly suggest some kind of act that would essentially so desecrate the holy precincts that it would no longer be appropriate or possible to worship there. What this particular act was, of course, remains a matter of considerable dispute. I think it's safe to say it was something that would be dramatic enough that the people living in Jerusalem who were attempting to obey Christ would recognize it, even though if at this distance we have to scratch our heads a little bit about it. Of course, Luke helps us here. He substitutes when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies. Some think that's the same thing. That's doubtful. But it certainly took place at the same time. And so Luke uses the signal to be that which is external, the brief siege of Jerusalem that took place in the year 66 stood as a signal for the people to leave. And at the same time, there must have been something that took place, maybe at the hands of the zealots internally, that was also visible. So one way or another, it was a neon sign to the people living there who were seeking to obey Jesus, that this was the time to act. To rathen, rathen is the aorist passive participle, neuter singular accusative. It's from reo, which means to speak, so the having been spoken. Participle dia with the genitive Daniel, through Daniel. So this is, of course, a phrase that's used. In fact, it's borrowed almost verbatim from Daniel chapter 9, chapter 12, this abomination of desolation. So when you see something comparable to that, Daniel the prophet, estos from histemi, to stand. This is the perfect active participle, standing, remaining there in topo hagio, in the holy place or in holy precincts. Then, as it were, parenthetical, ho anagenoskon, the reader. Anagenosko usually is rendered to read, so the reader. Noieto, from noiao, to get it. The word nous is behind this. Let this one understand in the imperative. Unclear whether that phrase that we have here was spoken by Jesus himself or by Matthew as he's later recording this, one way or another. Of course, it's pointing back to Daniel. Let the reader recognize that something comparable to what took place under Antiochus Epiphanes back in the story of Daniel is being reproduced here. With sufficient obvious dramatic force that it'll be readily recognized by those who would see it and could therefore take the appropriate action.